The 32nd floor of the McKinley Financial Tower was supposed to be empty at 9:47 p.m. on a Friday night, but the soft hum of a vacuum cleaner echoed through the executive offices. Marcus Thompson pushed his cleaning cart methodically from office to office, wiping down mahogany desks, emptying wastebaskets, and straightening the leather chairs that cost more than most people made in a month. At 43, Marcus had been working nights for Spotless Solutions Cleaning Company for the past 3 weeks, specifically assigned to the executive level of one of Chicago's most prestigious investment firms. It wasn't the career he'd planned, but life had a way of taking unexpected turns. What the employees of Henderson Associates didn't know, what nobody except the board of directors knew, was that Marcus Thompson wasn't just any janitor. He was their new CEO, scheduled to start Monday morning. Marcus had specifically requested to work the cleaning contract for 3 weeks before his official start date. He wanted to observe the company culture when nobody was putting on their best behavior. He wanted to see how employees treated people they considered beneath. He wanted to understand the real dynamics of the organization he was about to lead. What he'd observed so far hadn't impressed him. As Marcus cleaned the conference room where he'd be holding his first executive meeting in 3 days, he heard the familiar click of high heels on marble. Tetty of Henderson and Associates executive assistants, Jessica Chen and Amanda Richards, were returning from what appeared to be a long night of client dinners and cocktails. "I swear, if Mr. Henderson expects me to babysit another one of his golf buddies' spoiled sons, I'm going to lose it," Jessica complained, her voice carrying clearly through the open office space. "At least you don't have to deal with the new CEO situation," Amanda replied, setting down her designer purse with more force than necessary. "Nobody knows anything about this Marcus Thompson guy. Henderson won't tell us his background, won't show us his photo, won't even confirm when he's actually starting." Marcus continued cleaning, but he listened carefully. This was exactly the kind of insight he'd hoped to gain. Maybe he's some hotshot from Wall Street who thinks he's too good to meet with the support staff before he starts, Jessica speculated, kicking off her expensive heels and rubbing her feet. Or maybe he's completely unqualified, and Henderson's trying to keep it quiet until it's too late to back out, Amanda suggested, laughing at her own joke. Marcus paused in his cleaning. These were two of the most senior administrative staff members in the company. They coordinated meetings, managed schedules, and essentially controlled access to the executive team. Their attitude toward leadership, toward him, would set the tone for the entire organization. "Excuse me," Jessica called out, apparently noticing Marcus for the first time. "What are you doing here so late?" Marcus looked up from the desk he was wiping down. "Cleaning the offices, ma'am. I work for Spotless Solutions." "At 10 p.m. on a Friday?" Amanda's voice carried a tone of suspicion that immediately put Marcus on alert. "Yes, ma'am. These offices are cleaned after hours to avoid disrupting business operations." Jessica exchanged a look with Amanda, and Marcus could practically see the assumptions forming in their minds. A black man, working alone in executive offices late at night, when no one else was around. He'd encountered this particular combination of racial profiling and class bias before. "Do you have ID?" Amanda demanded, crossing her arms over her chest. Marcus reached for his wallet and produced his Spotless Solutions employee badge. "Here's my company identification." Jessica examined the badge with exaggerated thoroughness, as if she were a detective analyzing evidence at a crime scene. "This says you started 3 weeks ago." "That's correct. And you've been cleaning these offices for 3 weeks?" "Yes, ma'am." Amanda stepped closer, and Marcus could smell the wine on her breath. 3 weeks, right around the time all this mysterious new CEO stuff started happening. "Don't you think that's a convenient coincidence?" Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "I'm not sure what you're suggesting." "I'm suggesting," Amanda said, her voice taking on the condescending tone that people used when they thought they were speaking to someone intellectually inferior, "that it's awfully suspicious for someone we've never seen before to suddenly have access to confidential executive offices right when the company is going through a leadership transition." "Ma'am, I'm just doing my job. If you'd like to verify my employment, you can call Spotless Solutions in the morning." "In the morning?" Jessica laughed, but there was no humor in it. "How do we know you're not going through confidential documents?" How do we know you're not stealing trade secrets or client information? Marcus set down his cleaning cloth and looked directly at both women. Because I'm a professional doing the job I was hired to do. Just like you. Just like us. Amanda's voice rose. Excuse me? I said I'm a professional, just like you. We all work for the same goal, keeping this company running smoothly. Jessica laughed again, this time with genuine amusement. Honey, we have college degrees and professional careers. You push a mop. It's not really the same thing. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus felt the familiar surge of anger that came with being dismissed, diminished, and disrespected. But he also felt something else, a cold, calculating clarity about what kind of leaders these women thought they were and what kind of company culture they were perpetuating. You're right, Marcus said quietly. It's not the same thing at all. Amanda smirked, apparently satisfied that she'd put him in his place. Exactly. So maybe you should focus on cleaning and leave the thinking to people who are qualified to do it. I'll keep that in mind, Marcus replied, returning to his cleaning. But Jessica wasn't done. The wine, the long day and the power dynamic had apparently emboldened her to push further. You know what? I don't care if you work for Spotless Solution. I don't feel comfortable with you being up here unsupervised, especially when you're asking questions about company leadership. I wasn't asking questions about anything. You were listening to our conversation about the new CEO. You were talking loudly in a public space. I was Amanda pulled out her phone. I'm calling security. They can verify your story and escort you out. Marcus watched her dial, knowing that in about 5 minutes, this situation would become infinitely more complicated. Security would arrive, probably treat him with the same suspicion and disrespect these women had shown, and potentially create exactly the kind of incident that could undermine his authority before he'd even officially started as CEO. But he also realized this was a teaching moment, not just for Jessica and Amanda, but for the entire organization. How leadership responded to disrespect, how they handled being underestimated, and how they dealt with people who abused what little power they had would set the tone for everything that came afterward. Security is on their way, Amanda announced, apparently pleased with herself. I appreciate you looking out for company security, Marcus said calmly. That kind of vigilance is important in an organization like this. Jessica frowned, clearly not expecting such a measured response. You're not upset about you doing what you think is your job? No, I understand that you're trying to protect company interests. I just hope that same energy extends to treating all employees with basic respect and dignity. What's that supposed to mean? Marcus continued cleaning, choosing his words carefully. It means that the way you treat people when you think they can't affect your career says a lot about your character, and character matters, especially in leadership positions. Amanda laughed. Leadership positions? You're lecturing us about leadership. I'm observing that good leaders treat everyone well, regardless of their position in the company hierarchy. Bad leaders only show respect to people they think can help or hurt them. And which kind of leader do you think you are? Jessica asked mockingly. Marcus paused in his cleaning and looked directly at her. For just a moment she saw something in his eyes, a depth, an intelligence, a quiet authority, that made her step back slightly. I guess we'll find out, he said simply. The elevator chimed, and 2 security guards stepped onto the executive floor. Marcus recognized them from his previous late-night shifts. David Martinez and Kenneth Wright, both professional and courteous in their previous interactions with him. Evening, Marcus, David said with a nod. Ladies, is there a problem? Jessica stepped forward. We found this man up here alone, unsupervised, possibly going through confidential documents. Kenneth looked confused. Marcus? He's been cleaning these offices for 3 weeks. His clearance and background check cleared with flying colors. But don't you think it's suspicious that he's asking questions about company leadership? David exchanged a look with Kenneth. Marcus, have you been asking questions about company leadership? I haven't asked any questions about anything, Marcus replied truthfully. I've been cleaning offices and doing my job. The ladies say you were listening to their conversation about the new CEO. They were talking in the open office area while I was working. I didn't ask them to include me in their conversation, and I didn't contribute to it. Kenneth nodded. That sounds about right. Marcus minds his own business and does good work. Amanda's face flushed. Are you seriously taking his word over ours? Ma'am, I'm not taking anyone's word over anyone. I'm just telling you that in 3 weeks of working these offices, Marcus has been nothing but professional. He's never been in any area he shouldn't be, never touched anything he shouldn't touch, and never asked any questions about anything other than where to find cleaning supply. Jessica looked frustrated. But the timing of what? David asked gently. Him starting work right when the new CEO situation started. Don't you think that's suspicious? Kenneth smiled. Ma'am, the cleaning contract was renewed a month ago because the previous company wasn't doing a good job. The timing doesn't have anything to do with leadership changes. It has to do with Henderson and Associates wanting cleaner office. Marcus continued working while the conversation continued around him, but he was taking mental notes. David and Kenneth treated him with respect and professionalism. They'd clearly taken the time to learn his name and observe his work ethic. Jessica and Amanda, on the other hand, had immediately jumped to suspicion and accusations based on nothing but their own biases. So you're not going to escort him out? Amanda demanded. For what? David asked. Doing his job? For being here when he shouldn't be. He should be here. He's scheduled to be here. This is when these offices get cleaned. Jessica threw up her hands in frustration. Fine. But I'm filing a report with HR on Monday. This whole situation feels inappropriate. That's your right, ma'am, Kenneth said diplomatically. HR will investigate any complaint thoroughly. As the security guards prepared to leave, David turned to Marcus. You good, man? I'm fine. Thank you for being professional about this. Just doing our job. Have a good week. After the elevator doors closed behind the security guards, Jessica and Amanda stood in the executive office area, clearly frustrated that their concerns hadn't been taken seriously. I can't believe they just dismissed us like that, Amanda muttered. Security probably doesn't deal with the paperwork, Jessica replied, but HR will take this seriously, especially when the new CEO hears about random janitors having access to executive offices. Marcus continued cleaning, but he was listening to every word. You know what? Amanda said, her voice getting louder again. I don't care what security says. I don't want you up here anymore. Find someone else to clean these offices. Marcus looked up. Ma'am, I don't make those decisions. The cleaning schedule is determined by my supervisor and your facilities management team. Then I'll call your supervisor Monday morning and request a different janitor. That's your right. Jessica stepped closer. And when I do, I'm going to tell them exactly why. That you were inappropriate, suspicious, and disrespectful. I'm sorry you feel that way. Don't give me that fake apology bullshit. You know exactly what you were doing. Marcus set down his cleaning supplies and faced both women directly. Actually, I don't. Could you explain to me what I was doing wrong? You were eavesdropping on private conversations. I was working in a public office space while you had a conversation. If you wanted privacy, you could have gone into a private office. You were being disrespectful. In what way? Jessica struggled to find a specific example. Your whole attitude. The way you were talking to us like you're equal to us. The words hung in the air, and Marcus felt something inside him crystallize. This wasn't about security concerns or appropriate behavior. This was about two people who couldn't accept being spoken to with dignity by someone they considered beneath them. I see, Marcus said quietly. Do you? Amanda challenged. Because your attitude needs to change if you want to keep working in this building. Marcus nodded slowly. My attitude will definitely be different on Monday. Good. Maybe you'll learn some respect. I think we all will. There was something in Marcus's tone that made both women pause, but they couldn't quite identify what it was. He returned to his cleaning, and they gathered their belongings and headed toward the elevator. Unbelievable, Jessica muttered as they waited for the elevator. The nerve of some people. Wait until the new CEO hears about this, Amanda replied. He'll probably have the entire cleaning company fired. As the elevator doors closed behind them, Marcus continued his work in the now quiet executive offices. He cleaned the conference room where he'd be announcing new diversity and inclusion initiatives. He dusted the office that would be his, removing the nameplate that still read Interim CEO. He emptied the wastebasket where, on Monday, he'd be throwing away the employment files of at least 2 executive assistants. The weekend passed slowly. Marcus spent Saturday reviewing personnel files and company policies, paying particular attention to the employee handbook sections on workplace harassment and discrimination. He spent Sunday meeting with the head of HR, briefing her on what had happened Friday night and discussing the appropriate response. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzly, matching the mood Marcus felt as he rode the elevator to the 32nd floor. But this time he wasn't wearing a janitor's uniform. He wore a charcoal gray suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent, Italian leather shoes, and a confidence that came from years of executive leadership. The elevator doors opened, and Marcus stepped into the reception area of Henderson Associates. Jessica Chen was at her desk, sipping coffee and scrolling through her phone, apparently unaware that the new CEO was scheduled to arrive at 9 a.m. "Good morning," Marcus said. Jessica looked up, did a double-take, and nearly spilled her coffee. What are you doing here? "I'm here for work, just like you." "But you're the janitor." "Actually, no. I'm Marcus Thompson." Jessica's face went white. Amanda Richards, who had been walking toward her desk with a stack of files, stopped mid-step when she saw Marcus. "You're—" Amanda's voice came out as barely a whisper. "The new CEO." "Yeah." The color drained from both women's faces as the full implications of Friday night's encounter began to sink in. "I don't understand," Jessica said weakly. "I spent 3 weeks working as a janitor to observe company culture and see how employees treat each other when they think no one important is watching," Marcus explained calmly. "It was educational." Amanda dropped the files she was carrying, papers scattering across the floor. "Oh my God. Mr. Henderson will be here shortly to make the formal introduction to the entire staff," Marcus continued. "But I wanted to speak with both of you first." Jessica stood up from her desk, her legs visibly shaking. "Mr. Thompson, I am so sorry. I had no idea. You had no idea who I was, but you knew who you thought I was, and that's the problem." Amanda bent down to gather the scattered papers, her hands trembling. We were trying to protect the company. You thought a black man cleaning offices late at night must be up to something suspicious. You thought someone who pushes a mop couldn't possibly have valuable insights. You thought your college degrees gave you the right to treat another human being with disrespect and contempt." Both women were crying now, but Marcus wasn't finished. "You told me to focus on cleaning and leave the thinking to people who are qualified to do it. You called security because you didn't feel comfortable with me having access to executive offices. You threatened to have me fired for the crime of doing my job while black." "We're sorry," Jessica sobbed. "We didn't mean." "You meant every word. And more importantly, you meant every assumption, every dismissal, every moment of disrespect. The only thing you're sorry about is that you got caught." Marcus walked to the conference room, with Jessica and Amanda following behind him like condemned prisoners. "Here's what's going to happen," Marcus said, settling into the chair at the head of the conference table, the same table he'd been cleaning 3 days earlier. "You're both terminated, effective immediately." "Please," Amanda begged. "We made a mistake. We can learn. We can do better. I'm sure you can. But you'll be doing it somewhere else." Jessica fell into a chair, putting her head in her hand. "We're going to be blacklisted from every firm in the city. No one will hire us after this. That's not my concern. My concern is creating a workplace culture where every employee is treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their position or background. You've demonstrated that you're not capable of contributing to that culture. But we've worked here for years," Amanda pleaded. "We know the systems, the clients, the procedures. And you also know how to make assumptions about people based on their race and job title. You know how to abuse what little power you have to make other people feel small. You know how to call security on someone for the crime of existing while black in a space you think belongs to you." Marcus stood up, straightening his tie. "Your final paychecks will be ready by noon. Security will escort you out of the building. And if I hear that either of you has badmouthed this company or spread false information about your termination, you'll be hearing from our legal department." As if on cue, Kenneth Wright appeared in the conference room doorway. "Mr. Thompson? Mr. Henderson is ready for the staff meeting." Thank you, Kenneth. Ladies, please gather your personal belongings. As Jessica and Amanda collected their things under Kenneth's supervision, Marcus straightened his shoulders and prepared to address the rest of the Henderson and Associates staff. Some of them had probably heard rumors about the new CEO. Some of them might have even heard about Friday night's incident. But all of them were about to learn what it meant to work for a leader who believed that character mattered more than credentials, that respect was non-negotiable, and that the way you treated people when you thought no one was watching said everything about who you really were. The conference room filled with employees, executives, and administrative staff. Mr. Henderson stood at the front of the room, beaming with pride as he prepared to introduce his hand-picked successor. "Ladies and gentlemen," Henderson began, "it gives me great pleasure to introduce our new CEO, Marcus Thompson. Marcus brings 15 years of executive leadership experience, an MBA from Wharton, and a vision for transforming Henderson and Associates into the most inclusive and innovative firm in the industry." Applause filled the room, but Marcus noticed that some employees were looking around, confused by the absence of Jessica and Amanda. "Thank you, Mr. Henderson," Marcus said, stepping forward. "I'm excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you to build something special." He paused, scanning the room full of faces, some welcoming, some curious, some cautious. "I want to start by sharing something I learned during my first 3 weeks with this company. I learned that culture isn't about mission statements or employee handbook. Culture is about how we treat each other when we think no one important is watching. It's about whether we show respect to the janitor, the security guard, the receptionist, and the intern, not just to the people who can affect our careers." A murmur went through the room as people began to understand that there was more to this story. "I spent my first 3 weeks here, working as a janitor, observing how employees interact with each other and with people they consider to be in service positions. Most of you passed that test. You were professional, courteous, and respectful. A few of you did not." Marcus looked around the room, noting the mixture of surprise, curiosity, and dawning understanding on people's faces. "Going forward, Henderson and Associates will be a company where every employee is valued, where assumptions based on race or job title are unacceptable, and where treating people with dignity isn't just encouraged, it's required." The applause that followed was more enthusiastic than the first round, and Marcus could see in people's eyes that they understood the message. Character mattered, respect was non-negotiable, and the new CEO wasn't just talking about change. He was willing to enforce. As the meeting concluded, and employees filed out to return to their work, Marcus remained in the conference room, looking out at the Chicago skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows. In 3 weeks he'd learned more about this company than most CEOs learned in their first year. But more importantly, he'd learned something about himself, that sometimes the best way to lead from the top was to start from the bottom, that the most valuable insights came from the positions people thought were least important, that real change happened when leaders were willing to experience the culture they were trying to transform. His phone buzzed with a text from his wife. "How did the first day go?" Marcus smiled as he typed back. "Better than expected. Turns out some lessons are only learned the hard way." As he settled into his new office, the same office he'd been cleaning just 3 days earlier, Marcus Thompson realized that being CEO wasn't just about making strategic decisions or managing profit margin. It was about setting the tone for how human beings treated each other. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, in the place where they spent most of their waking lives. And if that meant occasionally pretending to be a janitor to see who people really were when they thought no one important was watching, then that was a small price to pay for building the kind of company where everyone could do their best work with dignity and respect.